He's one of the most successful CrossFit coaches in the world and has coached both male and female champions of the sport. He's an entrepreneur, family man, and author, and an all-around great guy, and he's coming up next. Welcome, Living Richly Nation. It's so great to have you on this week's show. We're so grateful that you're tuning in every week for these shows. And today, this episode we're really excited about. We have a very, very special guest. And Rob, I'm going to have you introduce him.
Yeah, it is so great to have Ben Bergeron with us. Ben is just recently, literally this past August, retired from coaching athletes at the CrossFit Games over the course of his career as a CrossFit elite athlete coach. He has coached all kinds of successful athletes, including the world's fittest female and the world's fittest male athlete. He has not only as a coach of CrossFit athletes, he runs one of the most successful CrossFit studios in the world. He is a author, has written a number of books, and just absolutely, and also is running another company, an online coaching program called CompTrain. Ben has influenced my life in so many ways, and yet this is our first time we get to meet, as it is with often people that are in this world. In his podcast is one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to. Wendy and I will listen to it regularly together when we're on the road. It's always the first thing we choose to listen to. It's so great to have you with us, Ben. Welcome. I know that you've recently retired from coaching at the CrossFit Games, but there's a lot still going on your plate. So thank you for taking some time to be with us today. How you doing?
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So your book, Chasing Excellence, as I mentioned, we talk about it all the time.
He talks about it, Ben. You don't understand. He talks about it all the time. And he's recommended it, and it's actually, as a result, it's on my to-read list. It's like in my next 5 books to read. I've always got this huge stack, so I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. But I feel like I already know it because he's shared the message so many times, and it's influenced as a result, not just Rob's life, but my life and the podcast. So again, having you here today is a real special thing for us.
I do a even with my coaching clients, my business coaching clients, it's one of the top, certainly in the top 5 books that I recommend to my clients to read as well, because there's just so much good information in there. And for me, where it really influenced me last year was around mindset. It was the opportunity to understand that shifting into the way that you think, the way that you focus on the things that are within your control, all of those things absolutely help me in the day-to-day and what I'm doing. Ben, is there maybe an aha? What was the kind of the leading up to writing this book? What was the influence that caused you to decide it's time to put this on paper?
It was a very definitive moment. I was at lunch with my very best friend, who's an incredibly successful person, and we have these regular lunches where we swap war stories back and forth. We're both entrepreneurs, and he was like, "Dude, you got to write a book." And I had just recently won the CrossFit Games with an individual male and an individual female, first coach to ever do that. And he was like, "Now is the time." And I was like, yeah, but there's like so many other things to do. He's like, "I know somebody that owns a company that publishes books, and I will front the cost for it."
Wow.
So I was basically bullied into it.
Love that. Sometimes we have to be pushed, don't we? I mean, you would know this well in the coaching world. I mean, it's amazing how we often just stop short of greatness. And it often requires, no, you've got more in you, right? You've got something else. It often requires that outside voice.
That's what good friends do, right? I'm a big believer in, the old cliche of you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But more so is, I think that one of the most important things, we talk about mindset a lot. Mindset certainly is important, but really what comes before mindset, because mindset needs to be a decision. What actually happens before that is your environment. Your environment influences you more than anything else. You can determine someone's success from a monetary perspective better by the zip code that they come from than their IQ. There's a better correlate to zip codes than there is to IQ to earning potential.
Wow.
What that means is who are you hanging out with? And just as you guys said, if your friends are full of drama and complaining, toxicity, and holding you back, holding you down, it takes an incredible willpower, mental strength, fortitude, direction, and to push against that swim upstream. That's a real challenge that I so look up to the people that are willing and able to fight that fight. Luckily, I've been blessed enough to be surrounded by incredible people in my life, just like my friend Derek, who is the one that did this. So to your point, yes, absolutely. Like, you need the coaches, you need the mentors, you need the friends, you need the family, you need the peers, you need the competitors that are around you to make you a better person. And for me, Derek is exactly that person. And the book, honestly, I mean, people say this, I think a lot with but with no exaggeration, the first book and the second book just would not have happened without him.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is interesting. And part of when I first said, we need to try to get Ben on the show, part of what that influence was that I saw, even in the shifts that you've made in your podcast and the way you focused into so many of these different areas, there's such alignment with the Living Richly message, right? Yeah. We talk about it all the time that, if you are going to live your best life, you might be able to do it on your own, but it's
pretty hard.
Really hard.
It's really hard.
It is about the community that you surround yourself with, and that community being able to influence. Ben, this is a little bit off script, but I think it's such a powerful story. Maybe a real kind of condensed version of this would be so fitting here because it ties so well into community. Your last episode, you shared the story of going to prison. And that was just I sat there, I rewound it. I rewounded. That's
wow. You're listening to it on a cassette tape.
55 years old. I hit the rewind.
Rob is dating himself right now.
I waited for the DJ to finish talking so I could press record on my dual cassette player so I could make sure I got the Bon Jovi song exactly the way I wanted it to.
Right. But maybe just as a highlight, the piece around the notion of in that prison where they were running this CrossFit studio, it was around the community was the influence, and you gave some stats around the percentage of people who are successful leaving prison because of the community that they're a part of. Could you maybe just a Cole's Notes version of that?
Yeah, so the short version is I created a relationship with somebody that started a CrossFit organization, which is now in 14 different facilities in the state of Colorado, from minimum to maximum security prisons, invited in to kind of see what's happening in face-to-face in real life. And it's amazing. And I don't use the word amazing lightly. It is truly amazing and truly transformational what this community, which is built around, let's get stronger, fitter, faster, is doing to people's lives. And the point that you're alluding to is the people that leave prison in the state of Colorado, it's about I wish I had the number in front of me. Maybe you guys can remember, but I believe it was like a 60% or higher recidivism rate, which means they end up back in prison. And I don't have it in front of me. That's what my memory recalls. Of the people that make it all the way through this program, that number drops to 0.
Wow.
0 people. 0
That's
have
crazy.
Gone back into prison. And even the people that touch the program, that have been through it at all, that number is in the 30%. So it drops in half just by having them any experience, any exposure to this. But if they've been through the full totality of the program, no one has gone back. Now, if you think about the magnitude of the impact of the people around you, there's no stronger example exactly of that. But what's really interesting is also how something that can be set up for what looks like the outside looks like strength and conditioning. And this is what's weird when you talk about those people on the outside that don't understand it. And, we're trying to create funds for this and try to they're like, why are we going to send money to make prisoners stronger? That makes no sense. Why would we want those guys to be more dangerous? And totally get that. That was my impression as well, until you recognize what's actually happening. which is 50% of the people in prison are getting out within 5 years. That's a big number.
Yeah.
Half of the people are going to be out of prison within 5 years. Those people are being reintroduced in society. Who do you want to be reintroduced? And what this program is doing is not just making them, it's giving them purpose, it's giving them community, it's instilling values, responsibility, accountability, discipline, and all of the traits that they're going to need when they get out that they didn't have when they went in. And the reason they went in was because they didn't have that surrounding community that instill those traits into them.
That is so powerful. What a powerful story and powerful outcome. We just had on the show, you referred to it, the 3-time Olympian speed skater and gold medal finalist, Olivier Jean, best known for his dreadlocks and listening to reggae music. He always stood out in that sport when he was wearing the dreads or sporting the dreads. But he talked to us about what he called it following the fun, which is his passion and the importance of the community that he was surrounded by from a very, very young age, knowing that he wanted to make it to the Olympics. It would take him 19 years to get there, right? And it was that passion, that drive to achieve that goal and that supportive community that made it possible. So the importance of finding the right people, right? Surrounding yourself with the right people, I don't think can be understated. And what a powerful example of that.
I love the fact that you were even talking about in that culture, because of the strength of community, breaking down racial barriers, breaking down all of these other things that are so common in prison. What you don't know, some of the listeners who have listened to my story, they know, is that my dad spent 17 years in prison and was in a maximum security prison. At one point had broken out of prison a number of times. So when you share that story, it really piqued my interest, because I grew up in an environment of people who were in prison and going through that whole experience. So powerful. And in the case of with my dad, zero positive community around him. And when he died alone, an alcoholic, completely just broken individual, because he didn't have those people that he surrounded. And one of my values is community as a result.
Well, Rob, that's amazing. You're one of those generation breakers that I respect so much. I think that is the hardest thing, because you accept the surroundings in which you're presented. It's that old Socrates cave analogy, which if you grew up in a cave, you think that all there is to life is shadows.
Right.
If you were to step out in the cave, you go, oh my God. Well, it's the same thing. If you just grow up in an environment of violence and disrespect, abuse, and non-accountability, like I'm just going to do my thing, selfishness, that's what why would a 11-year-old think of anything different? And It's really impressive to me. And I have so much respect for the people that rise up above that and kind of pop their heads up out of the clouds going, these are still, it's just harder, but they're conscious decisions.
Absolutely.
The hard part about that, the hardest one, is I don't want to lose my friends. Well, that friends and family, like those are, like we're told, are the number one things in your lives. I just really believe that you deciding, making it a conscious decision who you are spending your time with is probably some of the biggest decisions you'll ever make in your life. The biggest one, in my opinion, being who you marry, because that's who you're going to spend the most time with. Right. Bigger than what I'm going to do for a job, bigger than where I'm going to live, is who am I going to marry? And then the next one's outside of that is who am I going to spend my time with? Now, by default, for a lot of that is the work environment, because we spend 8 hours a day in the work environment, but we don't need to be in any environment. We can choose where we go.
Yeah.
The hard part about that is usually it's not like you have two in front of you. You only have one in front of you. If that one isn't optimal, leaving that for a complete unknown where there isn't another option is the hard part.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't get to just go like, oh, I'm going to leave this group and go over to this group. You have to make the choice to leave this group, be nomadic for a while, be a lone wolf for a while till you find your new group. And that's the real challenge.
Yeah, we've talked about that very concept so many times on the show, that the willingness to break free from your current reality. If you're envisioning a better life and you envision, pursuing your passion, that may mean you may have to change the tribe that you're connected to. And that may mean a period in the wilderness, in the desert, by yourself. And that loneliness and that grieving of those former relationships is a thing. But as you start to show up more authentically, pursuing your passion, following the fun, then your tribe, your real tribe, will begin to show up. I'm just firmly convinced of that.
One of the powerful stats that exemplifies that is you are over 150% more likely to be overweight if your friends are overweight than if your parents are overweight.
Wow.
Because as an adult, it's who you spend your time with. It's not your genetics. It's who you're spending time. So if your friends go to the bar and order pitchers of beer and nachos and wings 3 nights a week, guess what you're going to end up doing? It's not because of your genes or the lineage or anything else. It's our behaviors.
It's so interesting. And I mentioned I'm a big fan of your podcast. Probably my favorite episode of your podcast is one that my partner Wendy and I listen to oftentimes, and it's the one that your wife Heather was on with you. You mentioned just a moment ago how important it is to have that spouse, and you were answering questions. A question from a listener around the notion of living, chasing excellence as a couple. We've done a couple of episodes on living richly as a couple. What does that look like?
But with our significant others, not the two of us.
No, yeah.
Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Well, we're not a couple.
No, well, we're not. Well, everyone's met Wendy and Kate.
They have, yeah. So that much is known.
And as I mentioned, and I agree with you. Wendy is, for me, the person who challenges me the most, who encourages me the most, who cheers me on more than anyone else, who believes in me more than anyone else, who holds me accountable more than anyone else. And it is so freeing when you have that partner at your side. Your ability to now chase, in your language, chase excellence is so much more. It's just so easier to do that.
Right.
Maybe take a minute and talk about the importance of that element of, you talked about the importance of the friends, that part of the community, but even how you embrace living your best life as a couple. Yeah,
I think it's, first off, I think you're spot on. I think it's one of the more important things that we can do is, yes, like as a 22-year-old, it's about like, oh, she's so hot, right? And it's like you want to marry the person that you want to sleep next to for the next 70 years.
Yeah.
But that's it's not that that's not an element, but it can't be founded solely on that. To me, the biggest things that we need is shared visions and values, which means that we want the same things in life, and the big things, right? I want to live in the country. I want to live in the city. Well, if you don't agree on those two things, there's going to be a lot of clashing and rifts. I want to have kids. I don't want to have kids. I'm a big family person. I want to travel. We have to have an understanding of what it is that we want out of our lives, both from a vision perspective and a values perspective. And, vision being the North Star of what do I think is what do I want my life to end up like? And probably a 10-year picture, sort of where in 10 years, you don't have to have it spot on and it's going to change. It might change every 6 months, but that's fine. We want to have those conversations along the way. And then values is simply what do I think is important in life? And the example I gave it actually in the second book I wrote, which is if a clear example of misalignment of values is if you love to hunt and it's one of those things that it's important to you. You feel it's actually the best thing you can do in terms of, protecting animals because your one kill, one heartbeat feeds you and your family for 6 months, as opposed to, industrial farming. And you believe it's what we as human beings should be doing, but your wife is a vegetarian and hates the thought of it. That's that little, we have to have that same, those are values.
Yeah.
I like to hunt and I think that we should guns are terrible. We're going to have a hard time. Now, I'm not saying you need to both be on the same side of the political spectrum, but you have to have the ability, I think politics are important. Cool. I don't think politics are important. That might be a rift.
Right.
It's really important, whether it's your friends, whether it's your team, whether it's your spouse or it's your business, to make sure that the vision and values are aligned. And if they are, Now we have the foundation for what it is that we want to chase. And then we can go and live an excellent life together. But if you don't have that in place, team, business, friends, organization, family, if you don't have those, what are we doing? We can work our ass off, work really, really hard, but ultimately not really get anywhere. And to me, that's the definition of hell, is working your ass off for something that ultimately doesn't matter.
Well, it's been said that if you don't have a vision, then anything will do, right? Anywhere you end up is okay, but it's not okay. It's a very unhappy, unfulfilling life.
Well, and you use the language, I love that. The vision is the North Star, as you just said, Ben. And then Eric, you introduced to me the language of your values or your compass. And so it's the compass of how, and so you're right. If you're using one compass and your spouse is on a totally different compass with a different North Star, there's going to be some issues. And so finding that alignment is so critical. And it's one of the most difficult at times conversations to have when you're already in a relationship with someone, is to figure out, can we find this alignment in order so that we may be able to live our best lives together?
I love the, you mentioned, you started talking in this last bit about how it's got to be more than the physical attraction, right? That is definitely an element of it, but you got to go beyond that if you're going to build something that goes the distance. And what's interesting is we use the 4 elements that have been used for thousands of years. Water speaks of mind, fire speaks of heart, wind speaks of spirit, and earth speaks of body. And when we think of when folks get fed up and want to make a change in their lives, often where they start, probably more than anywhere else, is with the earth element, right? They want to make a change. I want to get fit. I want to lose weight. I mean, it's probably the number one New Year's resolution that gets abandoned usually by the 3rd week in January, but it is the most common one. How do you see the importance of bringing those elements together? In ancient alchemy, a little aside is that they believe that when those 4 elements came together, that's when magic actually would take place, right? But you're in the fitness industry. I mean, that's where you've really built your business, built your name, built your reputation. And I know you do a lot of work on mindset. But when we talk about heart, when we talk about spirit, how does that show up for you? And how are you trying to build those things into your life and into your work?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of any framework, and that's as good a framework as I've heard in terms of the different elements that we want to bring together to create that magic. And people listening to go, of course you're biased. You're in the fitness world. You're a trainer. I really do believe that it starts with the body.
Yeah.
If we want to have clarity of mind, which to me, that is the ultimate goal. That's what we really want to have above all else, is we chase all of these things, but we're really looking for at the end of the day is peace of mind. And people go, no, I want to earn $100,000. I want to have a mansion. I want to be able to travel the world. I want to have 1 million followers on Facebook. I want to have ... Well, the reason that most people are doing this, not for that thing, it's that they've had little tastes of that before. And when they did, it felt really good and their mind got calm. So they got a raise. And when they got the raise, they got that dopamine hit and it went, ooh, this is so nice. But then really quickly it resets and you go, oh, now this is the new benchmark. And then this is the new benchmark. The thing we're really chasing is peace of mind. But here's the deal with peace of mind is it doesn't start in the mind. Everything's connected. You need the 4 elements to come together to make magic. But that first one you need is essentially like, if you want to create alchemy, if you want to create a fire, you need like the dry wood. You need a place to start. And the kind of parable that tells this fairly well is if you take a billionaire on his 300-foot yacht with staff of 25 and all like the swimwear models walking around, passing around the drinks, and they're in the Caribbean, like life is supposed to be as basically as good as it gets.
Yeah.
But if he has strep throat, all he's thinking about is that pain the next time he swallows.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it's the body. It's the physical body. Now, there are people that can elevate above that. There are monks that don't need a healthy body that can actually, the extreme example of this is the ones that get into such deep meditative states, this soma, where they can actually, in protest, light themselves on fire and actually just stay in a trance state as their body decomposes.
Wow. That's extreme.
That's cool. That's just not most of us,
sure.
right?
Talk about setting yourself on fire. Like
I'm gonna be the guy that, like, if I strep throat, is pissed off. Like, and I'm like, oh my God, this just kills. And it's hard for me to be present. It's hard for me to be empathetic. It's hard for me to be disciplined. It's hard for me to do the things that need to get done, because this is so consuming. It's the same thing as, like, if you're going through chemotherapy, if you are massively obese, if you have advanced adult onset diabetes, if you have all of these things that are taking away from your ability to actually live a fulfilled life, that's why we need this package of meat to operate optimally. If it is operating optimally, then we can go and bring our best selves to that relationship. We can bring our best selves to our purpose and our passions. We can bring our best selves to learning, growing, and evolving. But without that body, without that health as the foundation, I don't think it works the other way. I don't think, like, if you have an amazing, amazing relationship, it means that you can then go and do the fitness thing. I really think that it is the one linchpin that the others start off of. I think that, the framework that I have is eat, sleep, train, think, and connect. That's, for me, the things that we want to do to optimize our health so we can then go and live a life of excellence. But we need the health first. And of that eat, sleep, train, think, and connect, the first one inside of that is, most people say it's nutrition is the number one thing. Recently, sleep has gotten a lot of promotion, but you can't sleep your way to optimal health. You can't even eat your way to optimal health.
Wouldn't that be great? Just like, I'm going to nap my way to excellence. Yeah.
Yes. But if you optimize your performance, your physical performance, the hormonal responses that happen throughout the body, and what happens to, there's 13 systems, from your cardiovascular, musculature, the immune system, digestive system, hormonal system, the neurological system, all of these systems, the greatest effect that has on those is exercise and movement. Like, it's the first place to start. Yeah. That's why I think that Earth, if it's the way you said it, body, it is the first place for people to go. And if people are looking for that change in their lives, there's so many places to go to, right? Should I change my job? Should I try to get up earlier? Should I try to eat more vegetables? Should I try to have that hard conversation with that person? Should I start to read more? Should I go to church? Should I stop drinking as much? My first place I suggest is 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week of aerobic activity. It is 6 days a week, if not 7, of moderate to high intensity workout. Like, you got to do the thing. You got to actually do it. Now, intensity is relative, right? So what's intense for me is going to be different for you, which is going to be different from my grandmother. So for my grandmother, it might be walking up and down a few flights of stairs and doing some little mini air squats and pushing up against a wall to mimic a push-up, and that might last 3 minutes, but that might be enough for her. So but the first starting part is let's get the body ready.
Yeah, go for it.
I love that. And I was thinking, go back to just the book and what really hooked me into with Chasing Excellence, when you talk about the importance of the fitness and the health. When we talk about, again, and I wasn't familiar with CrossFit. I knew about CrossFit, but I wasn't familiar about the CrossFit Games until probably about a year before I was introduced to your book. I'd watched it, and then Wendy had introduced me to Katrin's book, and of course you're mentioned in there and all of that. But the CrossFit Games, when we talk about you coach the world's fittest individual, the male and female, we're talking about, even just to get to the CrossFit Games, you start with a pool of like 400,000 people from around the world, and it's down to the top 40 get to go in August to these games. And here you are now coaching. And you write almost at the beginning of the book, it might even be in the introduction, I don't remember, but you make a statement about people ask you all the time, would you rather coach somebody who was kind of an elite, physically fit athlete or somebody who is elite, physically fit mentally? You say the answer will probably surprise most people because you'd rather the fit athlete than the mentally tough athlete. And people will go, what? Wait a minute here. That doesn't make... maybe explain that. And of course, it's because you can teach mindset is what you say in the book. You can't teach talent. But for somebody who wants to get mentally strong, what's the most important thing that they need to understand?
Yeah. It's one thing, but it's broken into it's a framework. And if people understand this framework, this is what mental toughness is. First off, before we get to the framework, the understanding of what mental toughness is, because it's not what most people think it is. Most people think mental toughness is Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl last year. Sprained, high ankle sprain, gets re-aggravated, comes back in and plays the whole second half and runs for a first down on 4th and 12. And like what a mentally tough athlete. That's tough. That's physically tough. That's physically tough athlete. Now, his ability to withstand physical pain is a physical toughness trait. Now, Patrick Mahomes is also very mentally tough. What is mentally tough? Mentally tough is the ability to not be distracted. It's ability to stay focused on what you deem is most important. That's it. And it's a lot simpler than people actually think it is.
So good.
Because what people are trying to do is they go and think of you can picture in your head, the Navy SEAL training or the Marine boot camp where the drill sergeant, they get off the bus and they start yelling in their face. And that's not making anyone more mentally tough. It's just not. It's what they're doing is getting resilience physically and stuff. The mentally tough is a lot closer to focus than it is to physical toughness.
So I absolutely love that, Ben. I really love that distinction between resilience and focus, because just earlier we were talking about the importance of figuring out your vision and figuring out your values. And the vast majority of people don't have that figured out. They're living according to other people's expectations, maybe somebody else's vision, somebody else's values. And so they end up being, we talk about, they end up being like an extra on a movie set, right? As opposed to the star of their own show. Like they're not living their life. And so when you, I think the reason a lot of people lack focus and perhaps lack that mental toughness is they haven't figured out what is really important to them. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we need to take the time. So that goes in another. What we all want to do in terms of what do I believe chasing excellence is we need to create the awareness of what it is that we want to live what do we want our lives to look like? Let's have awareness of that. If we don't have the awareness of that, as you said, you end up being the extra, you end up latching onto someone else's values. Like, I want to earn a lot of money, which is just what society tells us. We end up falling into these other traps. So we need awareness. And then from there, the next step is awareness doesn't get you far without intention. Now I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to set the goals. I'm going to set the plan. I'm going to create the strategies. I am going to have intention for that. And then action, awareness, intention, action. Till you do it, you don't get any credit. You haven't stepped into the arena yet.
Right.
Nothing's happened. Now, it's not that those things aren't for naught, but we got to take the action. So let's figure out what we want our lives to look like. I want peace of mind. I want to live on a farm. I want to have a romantic relationship. You figure what is the thing you want? Intention. Well, am I living this way now? No. What do I need to do to get there? And then go do it. We need that framework. But more so, getting back to what is the one thing that Rob asked? It's this awareness, back to the awareness of what does mental toughness look like? It's having the awareness that there are different levels to mindset. And they're so easy to identify in others and ourselves. And once you know this, now we've taken this esoteric thing and turned it into something concrete where you can move up and down the ladder. It's the same thing, like you need to know how to get fit, but if you have no idea what fitness looks like, how do you know to do it?
Right.
Well, once you know, hey, if you're fit, you can run a 5-minute mile. If you're kind of fit, you can run a 7-minute mile. If you're active, you can run a 9-minute mile. And if you're not really there, if you're kind of like hedging on sickness, it looks like a 12-minute mile, 13, 14-minute mile. Cool. Now that we know that, let's go do this thing. Well, it's the same thing with mindset. All you do is you create the hierarchy of mindset, and the lowest level is a victim mindset. The victim says, woe is me. Life is out to get me. Why is this happening to me? The next level above that is the pessimist. Pessimists complain. This sucks. I hate this. Why is this? They're the ones that are complaining about the other side of the political spectrum. They're the ones that get all caught up in COVID. The next above that is the optimist. The optimist thinks that the future can be brighter than the past, but it's not the highest level. This is the medium. This is the middle. This is where everyone thinks they should be aspiring to. This is the middle. This is not where we're trying to get to. This is just like, we're not hurting yourself. Right. This is the middle.
You're in neutral gear. It's like you're in neutral. An optimist, you're like in neutral gear.
Yes, yeah. But at least we're not going backwards,
exactly.
Right? So this is a good place to strive to be. And the optimist is future's brighter than the past, and they see obstacles, they see opportunities, not obstacles, but they lack bracing because they're like, it's gonna be great, it'll be fine, it'll be good. And all of a sudden, they don't make the sale. Their child does get sick. COVID does last 2 years, and they get shattered. The great example of that is prisoners of war that are optimists die before the pessimists because they're like, it's okay, we'll be out by Christmas. Comes and goes, they die of a broken heart. So what we want to do is we want to rise above that from the victim to the pessimist, past the optimist, to something that we can all aspire to, which is the realist. The realist just accepts reality for what it is.
Right.
And when you say that out loud, it's like, well, why would we do anything else? And the reason is we as human beings are storytelling machines. We like to create stories about things that have happened in our lives.
Yeah, it's
the
so
optimists create stories and they go, this is what happened, and this is why it happened, and this is what this means, and this is what this. No, it's just like, it rained on your birthday. There's no, it just rained on your birthday. Accept it, and we move on.
Right.
It rained when you went camping. That wasn't because this always happens to me. Like this sucks. This like, no, it's raining and you're camping. Like now we deal with that. Anything less than the realist is just storytelling. Another word for storytelling is creating drama.
Right.
If you're less than an optimist, you're creating extra drama in your life, meaning you're not moving the needle down. You're not moving the ball down the field farther than you would be otherwise, because you have a hard time accepting that the universe has presented this thing, not because it likes you or dislikes you. Now, if we can get there and live there a little bit, and by the way, you're not like always in one. Every day you're going to bounce and forth between all of these things.
Right.
But the idea is, can we rise above that to the highest level, which is the warrior mindset? And what the warrior mindset does is looks at adversities not only as this is a necessary part of life that is going to be unavoidable, they actually cherish them. They want them. Because what the warrior understands is that only through the universe giving you adversity can you grow and evolve. Only. It's the only way. It is the only way. If you know how to type at a certain pace, only trying to go faster or trying to type harder words will make you a better typer. That's it. Now that's adversity. It's harder. If you stay at the same pace, you stay where you are, meaning you don't grow and evolve. This is why the warrior, the samurai who has dominated the dojo, ends up roaming the earth looking for a worthy foe, because they know what that will bring out of themselves. Now, that's a pretty elevated state. I'm not saying all of us will get there, but all of us can aspire for sure to start to climb the ladder, and different people are going to get triggered by different things in their lives. And that basically the question then becomes, this is the question we want to ask ourselves at all times. Can I handle this? When something happens, can I handle this? Can I handle this? And if you feel yourself creeping into the pessimist or the victim, you can't handle it. And the way you handle it is try to change the framework of your mental dialogue to at least an optimist, if not a realist or a warrior. But that's it.
Yeah, so powerful.
I love that, Ben. I cannot believe that you missed this was a perfect opportunity to use the analogy. You're using the samurai, using all these great analogies, right? The only way that you build muscle is by tearing it down. Like, come on, man. You had that was a gift that you could have used as an example there of the warrior and as the fitness guy.
Too cliche,
too cliche, too overused.
Listen, we're almost out of time. I feel like we could do 10 episodes with you. I want to mention, because the other book that you wrote, Unlocking Potential, is equally in different ways for me was really a powerful book. It was interesting. I shared this with all of our Rhapsody coaches, and I said, this book, Ben has somehow managed to get inside the brain of Rhapsody and has written a book. If we were to write a book about business, the business kind of business model, it would be this book. You are clearly influenced by the same people that we're influenced by. All of the chapters around, whether it's Covey's work on control, the things within your control, whether it's there's some stuff in there from a number of people, Gerber's work, the E-Myth. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there that you talk about in this book, which I think is absolutely great. You built and then tore down and then built and had to modify during COVID. Again, one of the most successful gyms in the world. And you wrote a book about what you did there. You were pretty honest in the book about staffing issues, building your team. You talk a lot about finding a way to get them into what you call the flow, which I think is brilliant. Maybe just we have a lot of business owners that listen to the podcast. We are connected to so many business owners. What would be a kind of a nugget of leadership wisdom that you would provide from your experience that we could pass on to our business and entrepreneurs?
Yeah, there's a lot from, the way that you structure the business to be able to set it up for success, meaning, creating, as we talked about, creating the North Star, the clarity of vision, the values. We call it like CVS, it's culture, vision, systems. There's really two pillars that this thing resides upon, which is the way that you build the product and the way you market it. The way you market it involves the customer journey and so on. But one of the more obvious but powerful leadership things that I've learned the hard way is there is no substitute. There just isn't no substitute for the potential power that a leader can have than being there, seen face to face. And COVID's created this really strange / unique opportunity for people to work from home remotely, which is really neat, because before COVID, we might not have had the opportunity to do something like this, but you will not be able to lead a team the way that you could otherwise if it was in person. That's just not. Most recently, I've really doubled down on this. I have a really nice office with a whole bunch of windows. I haven't been in my office in weeks. I do all my work in the common areas. And if I need privacy, I go into our conference room, which is a glass conference room. We call it like the aquarium because it looks like you're in an aquarium. And just so I can be seen. I used to take my one-on-one meetings in my office with a closed door. I now do it in the aquarium. So people can see me having a meeting without, like, just being seen. Now that's so not sexy advice. It's so like, that's just like be there. But I really can't emphasize it enough for leaders to be it's kind of like, imagine the head of a football team or a hockey team doing all of their work from the office.
Right.
Like they know they need to be on the field. They need to be on the ice with that team. You have to be there. You guys used the word tribe earlier on. This is what tribes are built upon. There is no leader of a tribe that isn't in the same physical location. You can't be removed. And this is what, I mean, even like the president of the United States, in times of whether you, at any time, it doesn't matter who the president is, this is like 101 of leadership. When there are the hurricanes, when there's the fires in Maui, when there's whatever, they go there. Now, being there doesn't change anything. They do all the same things, implement all the same systems from afar, but you have to be physically there. We as human beings are tribal beings. We grew up in tribes of 150, hierarchically, with a leader. When you walk in the room, people size each other up. It's not right or wrong. It's built into your DNA. And if we want to be a leader, you have to be physically present. And it's one of the things that I struggle with a lot, because I would rather be in my office. I'd rather be plugging away and doing my stuff. I'm introverted, and I'm more productive when I'm not out in the open. But from a leader perspective, 2 days ago, I poached up on, we have a bunch of plyo boxes that people jump on in the gym. And I just went and grabbed a bunch of those and did my work in the gym while classes were going on. Because I need to be seen. I need to be there.
Yeah, so good. Such great advice. I think it was Ken Blanchard a long time ago who wrote in the 1 Minute Manager, he would call what you're referring to as management by walking around, right? It's
MBWA.
Right? It's being present, being there. Such great advice for all the leaders that are listening. Listen, before we wrap up, we've got to ask you, we know that you just recently retired, right? It doesn't sound like you're retired. It sounds like you're just refocused on other things now, or doubling down on things you're already doing. But what's next for you in the coming months? And what can we expect to see coming from you and your organization that would line up with the Living Richly mantra?
I spent the last 15 years working with a very small select group of very elite athletes. I usually worked with 4 or less a year, just trying to get them to the very pinnacle of elite fitness. What I'm doing now is bringing the lessons I've learned over those last 15 years, working with the best of the best, and bringing them to anybody and everybody who believes that training hard is an important part of being their best selves. It's what we talked about. Like, it starts with the physical. And we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot in terms of like what makes the very best 1% better. But I've also, because I had this dual role of running a gym for soccer moms and dads, figured out how to bring that to a bigger audience. And that's what I'm doing now through this platform that you guys mentioned called CompTrain. It's an app that you can download on the App Store or Google. And it is really, really powerful, really, really effective training that's built for anybody that believes that training hard is important. It's not the CrossFit Games. It's not walking on your hands and slinging 300 pounds above your head. It's set up for anybody to be successful, but it's effective, real training. It's not boot camp or Pilates or spin, or not to bash those things, because they're the better step than not being there. But this is very, very, again, awareness, intention, action. What is the thing that's going to create real change with somebody? Let's create that platform and let's go do it. Let's get these people to be the best versions of themselves.
That's awesome. We're going to put all of that information, including links to your books and your website and your YouTube channel, link to the app, all in the show notes of today's episode for those of you that are listening. Ben, this has been an absolute treat to have you on the show. I feel we could talk for hours. Literally, I feel it's just this sense of kindred spirit. You use so much of the same language and just look at the world in such a similar way. We hope to be able to have you back at some point in the future if you'd welcome the invitation to be back on the show. For those of you that are listening, thanks for tuning in this week. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. We encourage you to go to our website, livingrichly.me, where you can find all the resources, including show notes and everything else from today's talk.
And make sure that you take a moment and subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or listening to one of the different podcast platforms. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes coming up. We've got some exciting guests and some different episodes that are going to be, I think, really worth your listen and watching. And encourage you as well. If this is, you're thinking of somebody boy, they would really benefit from hearing what Ben had to share, then why don't you take a moment and share that, tag them, let them know. This is about the Living Richly Nation. It's about making sure that we embrace and welcome others into the community, and we would encourage you to do your part in that as well.
Thanks again for tuning in, folks. We hope that we'll see you next week. And until then, get out there and live your best life.